Well, in this short video, we're going to discuss the external business environment. And the external business environment encompasses everything that is outside of the control of a particular business. Businesses have very limited control, usually in only the things that they can directly affect, things like production and hiring and capital and different things of that nature. But there are a lot of things that exist outside of the control of many different businesses. And so simply because a business can't control those things doesn't mean that they can't necessarily be oblivious to it. And so by understanding what happens in the external environment, businesses can put themselves in a position where they can adapt to those changes. And so really that's where this type of analysis provides such a huge benefit for a business, is by understanding the opportunities and the threats that are going on. You have the opportunity to potentially leverage those changes and turn those into strengths. Or if they're potential threats to your business, you have the ability to maybe insulate yourselves so that the harmful effects of the changes are lessened somewhat or negated altogether. And so the external business environment is very, very important, and businesses pay a great deal of attention to it because of that very fact. So what I'd like to do is simply identify the 5 different dimensions of the external business environment. The reason that we break them into about 5 or so is because we want to make sure that our analysis encompasses certain things, right? Naturally, we are kind of drawn to certain areas that we're more familiar with, and that can cause us to overlook certain things. And so by making it so there's 5 different areas that we're going to look at, we can make sure that at least we've considered some important variables in some key areas, and we don't necessarily overlook some things there, which is obviously not very positive. It can be very detrimental. So I'm going to identify those 5 dimensions, and then what we're going to be doing here in a later video is I will break down each of those dimensions individually, just so I can go into a little bit more detail and I can provide some different examples just so they make sense and to make sure that you understand how these dimensions work here. So let me identify these here real quick so we know what we're going into. The first is what we call the economic environment. And I'm sure you can gather, obviously, what the economic environment is. What we'll do later on is we'll discuss specifically what types of variables that we consider and ultimately what type of benefit that can provide a business. The next dimension of the external business environment is the social environment. This may be also referred to as the socio-cultural environment. They mean the same thing. They're just terms that are actually used interchangeably, but you might refer to it as the social environment. You may refer to it as the socio-cultural environment, depending upon who's mentioning it or depending upon the textbook that you're actually reading. All right, the next is the global environment. And then we also have the technological environment. And the last business environment is the competitive environment. And so these are the 5 different dimensions of the external business environment. As I mentioned before, businesses can't control these. They can't affect the outcomes. But the mentality is by conducting some careful analysis in each of these areas and having a better understanding of what goes on in the economic environment, in the social environment, in the global environment, technological as well as competitive, I can put myself in a position to where I can make some decisions based upon some really accurate information, and I know what's going on in my environment, and so I can make the decisions that can potentially put myself in a position to leverage some different changes that are going to happen. Hopefully you found that helpful. Make sure and check back for future videos. Thanks for being with us.